Because I do think it's the most important part, okay? And honestly, I think most of you would agree with me. And my brother even said, he said, once you can teach a kid how to think the right way, teaching him how to wrestle is kind of easy. And I agree with that. The hard part about it is it's kind of tough to quantify, and that's why I think a lot of wrestling coaches kind of ignore it. Meaning, if you get your kid to drill 100 single legs, well, you see them get better. You can literally watch them get better drilling a single leg, and you can see, oh, well, this is great. We drilled a single leg, we got better at a single leg. I love it, right? If you have them go lift weights, one day they lift, and then a month later they lift a little more. You say, he got stronger. It's easy to see, right? And so some of those things are easy, but with the mind, it's this really, really long-term process of, okay, I'm going to start with the kid. I'm going to start working on his mind, and I kind of can't really see it. I can't really see it all that much, right? Can't see the progress, and that's frustrating because it's like, is what I'm doing having any effect right now on my athlete? And usually you don't see it till many years later, right? Till your athlete is achieving kind of on some type of elite level, or they dealt with some adversity, and it's some kind of concept that maybe you've talked about a lot, and then boom, they break through a wall and they do great things, and you're like, oh, okay, now I see it work, right? But it's one of those things where it is it's hard because you don't see the payoff for a very long period of time. Okay, so where I think I wanted to start with that was there's this great quote that I really love so I'll talk about, I do these book readings with kids because I think books are a great way to do it, but it's from Chop Wood, Carry Water. Have you guys read that book? Anyone? That's it? Oh, some of you guys buy, everyone in this room, Chop Wood, Carry Water. It's tremendous. My dad coached high school wrestling for the first time this year because they were going to drop the program. I love my father, but it's kind of funny watching him coach wrestling. But I suggested Chop Wood, Carry Water, and he told me, he made him do it, and he told me how great it was even for him. So the quote is, they won't care how much you know until you know how much they care. And I think that, honestly, like that quote can speak to, I don't know, maybe half, maybe more of the problems wrestling coaches have with their athletes. There's so many wrestling coaches that just try to act like the boss that force their kids to do things, and the kids never really understand that they care about them, right? And guys, honestly, if you guys don't actually care about the athletes, I don't know what you're doing in this room. So I don't know any of you really all that well. I hope you all do care about the athletes, but that's what it's about, right? And kids can absolutely 100% feel that authenticity of like, do you actually care about them? Do you, right? And it's not established on day one or day two. It takes a while, right? And especially if a kid's had like maybe a shitty home life or their dad's a butthole or something like that, right? And they kind of have skepticism that anyone can actually care about them. It might even take longer. It might take a couple of years in that person's case, right? Of you just doing right by them, right? Treating them the right way. That could take a very, very long period of time. So I kind of always reflect back on that quote is they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I find it to be fully true. And I always try to employ that with my athletes. So I drove last night, and one of my buddies who's a coach, he told me to listen to this podcast. It was awesome. It was about growth mindset. Have you guys read that book? I'll talk about that book later. Carol Dweck, Mindset. Oh man, okay. I saw a lot more yeses on that one. So they were talking about the mentorship. I never heard of the term this way, but they called it mentorship dilemma was what they were calling it. And I've never actually heard anyone talk about this problem, but I recognized it myself. But the way I actually thought about it was, I actually thought about it as the way kids think of and or treat themselves. And then when they termed it as a coach or mentor problem, I agree with them. And then actually, so then they said, well, here's the problem. And then they gave a solution, and I agree with the solution also. So the mentorship dilemma is, on the one hand, if you're really, really strict with your athletes, they were not talking about athletes, people that they're talking about teachers and stuff. If you're really, really strict with them, they can think, oh, coach is a tyrant, he's so mean, he's making me do this, that, and the other, right? When the reality is you're holding them to high standards that you have expectations of, and honestly, if you have low expectations of them, then that's probably not a good thing, right? I want people to have high expectations of me. I want people to know that I can accomplish things. So I expect people to have high expectations of me, and as an athlete should think, I would love my coach to have high expectations of me. If they think I'm pathetic and I can't do anything, I don't really want that person to be my coach. So if you're too strict on them, they're saying being critical, hey, you didn't do that single leg right, this, that, and the other, they could think you're mean, you're a tyrant, blah, blah, blah. Then on the other side of it, if you just kind of want to be their buddy to create a relationship, now you're not going to help them fix any of their problems. Okay, so you're going to ignore the single leg because you didn't want to criticize them at all, right? And I always saw that within specific individuals, and I don't know if you guys could recognize this within the individuals you coach also, I think kids do this to themselves. And so I think there are some kids who are overly critical on themselves, and it makes them too negative and pessimistic about what their results could be, right? Then I also think there's kids who are too lackadaisical on their behaviors, but then that also makes them really optimistic about what their results can be. And I think those things kind of go together, and I think the correct answer is a healthy balance of the both of them. I think you should be kind of strict and critical with things, while at the same time acknowledging that you can achieve great results. So they were saying that the answer to the mentorship dilemma, and it was funny because sometimes you do things right and you don't know that you do things right, and then you hear like the science behind it, you're like, yes, I freaking got that one right. But they were saying the answer to this is always try to acknowledge a high standard while you're speaking to the athlete. And so I know that's something I try to do, is I try to tell all the kids, like, hey, here's why I'm correcting this. I'm correcting this because I think you can win a state title next year. I think you, or a lot of times I even say, like, you told me, right? So I was trying to get the goals out of the kids, like, well, I want to be a Division I college wrestler. Okay, well, you told me you wanted to be a Division I college wrestler. Well, in order to do that, you have to do X, Y, or Z, right? And so, like, for example, so we have this thing I have it on my phone, but I have it on the computer. We can see every single practice the kid goes to, right? So we have different locations, but it's all logged on one software. So it's like, well, if you told me you want to be a Division I wrestler, you're coming to, I looked, the last 3 months you came to 12 practices. That's not very many. He came to 34. You're behind him. Like, he plays third in state this year, you play sixth. How could you possibly catch up to him? Listen, I'm not going to tell you what your goals are. You told me what your goals are. Do whatever the hell you want with your life. But if you're doing 12 and he's doing 34, how is it possible you're going to catch up to him? Probably, right, guys? I mean, it's kind of impossible. So, like, I do that all the time with kids. And while I was listening to that talk last night, I was thinking about how important that was to be able to sit down and kind of be fair and balanced with the kid of, like, well, here's my expectations of you and the program, and you obviously should give me some feedback on what your expectations of yourself are. I don't know if you guys do that with your athletes. Ask them what their expectations of themselves. And sometimes you have to encourage them up, right? Because there are a lot of kids who think they're not capable of achieving at a higher level. And you got to kind of coach them up, like, yeah, you actually can do this. Sorry, see, now I'm getting distracted. I want to go to my next point, but one of the tactics I use, you guys are all welcome to steal this tactic, is we have this board of All-Americans on the wall up here, and so one of the things I always try to do is I always try to point to someone who is at a similar level at the similar age or had a similar struggle, and say, like, well, look, this person was experiencing the exact same thing as you, or this person, you know, for example, we don't push kids to be good very early, and so like, dude, we have plenty of kids who never placed at youth state or never went to youth state, and they end up being Division I wrestlers, which most people tell you that's fucking crazy and you can't do that, but I can tell you we've had a lot of them. You know, so when the kid doesn't place at state as an 8th grader and they're super depressed, they think I freaking suck. You know, you can say, I sit them down and I say, well, hey, you know, the expectation could still be really high. I know you like this. Jacob Somley, he partied too much in college, damn it all. He could have been really good, he partied too much. Why did the kids party too much? But Jacob Somley didn't place in 8th grade, and then he freaking went and wrestled Division I college wrestling, right? So you can do it. So that's kind of a tactic I use with a lot of the kids, is try to point them to someone similar who went through a similar journey or had the same problems as them. All right. Any questions on the mentorship dilemma? Or anything else I've spoken about yet? Sidebar, I was driving last night and I was tweeting. I know I shouldn't do that. I got it. You guys all do too, though. Don't freaking lie about it. Don't lie. Okay. I was getting so annoyed. Well, here's what kicked it off. Was Iowa State is like not doing their fancy ass wrestling room that they want to do for budget reasons. I get so annoyed that everyone wants these big fancy fucking wrestling rooms. I say a few swears. I try not to swear too much. You guys are gonna be really mad at me, or am I okay? Okay, all right. Some people will get mad at me. So, like Christian on FRL, I said don't swear too much. So I would try to always tone it down a little bit. That's okay. I'm not gonna force you to hear my swears if you don't like them. Anyway, so Iowa State's not building this big fancy wrestling room. And it's like, okay, listen, there's not a college wrestling program in America that is making money, that is at a profit. They're all losing money. They're all charities. And yet they want to build a $9 million wrestling room. Like, why? It's effing stupid. Building a fancy wrestling room does not make anyone a better wrestler, and it doesn't make anyone a better person. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to make better wrestlers, try to make them great human beings, right? At least that's what I'm trying to do. And, you know, we get so caught up on, if I have this nice fancy wrestling room, it's going to help me recruiting. It's going to help me no, it's freaking not. Like, give me a break. You're wasting money. Stop. So that's what, you guys want to argue about it? I'd love to argue about it. Last night I was like, I wish I was on FRL again so I could rant about big, stupid, expensive wrestling rooms and how they're wasting everyone's money and how it's a long-term negative. All right. I will digress. So I think one of the biggest things we do, probably the number one thing we stress, and I know this could be so simple, but I see so many coaches not doing it, so I'm gonna put it out there, is focus on what you can control, right? And that's a life lesson, right? Focus on what you can control. And so our number one thing, from all the way since we get them in their 5 years old, and they're probably, at 5 years old, they don't really understand anything. I have 5-year-olds, don't worry, I'm not being offensive to 5-year-olds. It might take a few more years, like we'll say, so I'm gonna skip 5, 6, and 7, because at that point, they don't understand much. But at like 8 years old, it's effort. And I know that seems like overly simplistic, but we stress effort as the number one thing. And the one thing I try to always say to the kids is like, and this is a true statement. Although there's one kid, there's been one kid. He was like a 3-time state qualifier, match away from placing. So you would say that's relatively good, right? He's not terrible. But I thought he was gonna be better. We've never had a kid that's given a long-term great effort and not had some type of good results, right? And I'm not saying every kid's a national champ, obviously that's impossible, right? But we've never had one kid who's came in and gave a good, strong effort over, and I'm not talking about for a month, right? I'm talking about over a multitude of years and not had really good results with it. Like I said, the kid who I'm picking out, who I'm like, oh man, I really was hoping he would achieve more. There were a few actually mindset problems which didn't allow him to get over the hump. But like he was a 3-time state qualifier and was around with placing twice. So like he was pretty good. And so that's kind of like our thing. If we can just focus on that, just that one thing, things are going to be good. And now, obviously that seems simple, but why is it also hard? Why is that also hard? And to me, that's hard because so many people want to get caught up on the results. They want to get caught up on the results. And so, you know, all the way from, oh, thank you. Guys, I could not find coffee this morning. It actually reminded me of the time I was in Kazakhstan. Okay, so Indianapolis, Kazakhstan, same thing. So.
Thank you, comrade.
I was in Kazakhstan this one time, and my one championship made me do a multi-country tour, right? Sorry, you guys could me tell a story? Okay. They were doing, I did like, it was bullshit countries. So, hey, you're recording, delete that.
It's all going in.
They're gonna hate me like they hate Trump.
You'll never be president.
They called them,
Shit'll. You'll never be president.
Yeah. So, I was doing all these, like, I did 4 little countries in, like, Russia, by Russia, sorry. And I get to Kazakhstan, right? And so they had a couple people with me, like, on the trip. Well, I get in the hotel room, and I don't know why I didn't ask the person with me his room number. I get in the hotel room, and all the plugs are different. So my phone dies, my computer dies, I got nothing. I'm like, whatever, I'll just go to sleep. So I go to sleep, I wake up, and it was early, it was like 5:30 a.m., right? My time was off. I'm like, okay, how am I gonna find this guy? I got no computer, I got no phone. And so I'm like, whatever, he'll find me. I give up on him. So after a while I read or something, it's like 7 o'clock, I go downstairs. I'm like, okay, well I gotta do something. I'm gonna go get a coffee. So I go to the front desk, and I say, hey man, where can I go get a coffee? And he's like, oh, go down here, here, here. I said, okay, what time is it open? And he said, it's not open until 9 o'clock. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, no, it opens at 9 o'clock. And I said, well, is there another one open before 9 o'clock? And he said, no. I'm like, so you're telling me no coffee shop opens till 9 o'clock? He said, yeah, that's right. I said, come on, man. I'm like, what time do people go to work? And he said, 9 o'clock. I'm like, well, man, people are getting coffee before they go to work. And he said, no, they're not. I said, I'm getting mad at this point. I'm like, you're full of shit. Like, you're wrong. Tell me where I can get coffee. And he's like, no. So then I left, and I was so irate because this guy wasn't making any sense at all. Surely people listen, in Kazakhstan, did they not get coffee before they go to work? I don't know. And if they're at work, then who's buying the damn coffee? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So maybe he's right. I don't know. I never found coffee. I was wandering around blind. I had no phone. I had no nothing. Okay. Where were we? Okay. Effort. So why people get distracted, as I got distracted. Parents have such a hard time not focusing on, parents and coaches have such a hard time not focusing on results, right? And we can never control the results of a contest. We can't. I could say, if I put you against Cale Sanderson, how many times are you going to win out of 1,000?
Easy money.
Okay. If you say more than 0, you're wrong. Okay? You're not going to beat it, guys. You're not going to beat him. He's just too good. You're not going to get lucky. You're not going to catch him on his back. Nothing. You're going to lose every freaking time, right? And so obviously that's an extreme example of Cale Sanderson versus you. Okay. But there are lots of matches. Your kids, especially as they're getting older, they're just not going to win. They're just not going to win. They're not good enough. Right? And so being obsessed about what the result is to me is kind of irrelevant. It's like, just give effort. Fight hard in positions. I can expect that of you. I can expect you to give all your effort. I can't expect you to win every time. And it's like, we all get caught up. Listen, I do too sometimes, right? We get caught up and the match is close and the kid gives great effort, but they made one mistake and they F it up. And then you're mad at him, right? Because he lost the match. But the reality is he gave great effort, and we can acknowledge that. We should applaud that. We should say, and then if they're giving great effort, what is that? That means they're trying really hard. And if you have them trying really hard, you can correct the small problems, right? And then if you have a kid for a longer period of time, it's like, well, if I just correct a small problem here, a small problem here, a small problem here, and then over a long time, and now I've corrected a lot of small problems. And now we have a really good wrestler because there's all these small issues that we've corrected, right? But if at the end of that match, I just freaking yell at him because he lost and he sucks, right? There's no room for fixing it. I actually have that in my notes on the next page. That was, maybe it was 2 pages from now, at some point. That was, I almost say sometimes to certain kids, because certain kids are really, I don't know if it's their parents or I don't know why it is, but they're really just really obsessed with like the results. And so like I was laughing about, I was kind of going through stuff. I was laughing about Mitchell Messerich. You guys all know who that is right now because he's pretty good at wrestling. But so I started working one-on-one, like doing one-on-ones with him after maybe his, I can't remember if it was sophomore or junior year. It was a while ago now, okay? But anyways, he would get so mad when I kick his ass. And I would tell him, like, if I want to beat you bad, I'm going to beat you bad. Like, I'm choosing every day to go a certain level of hard, how hard I'm going to go every single day. And then, but I said, but just think about the wrestling. Why are you thinking about the result? You're literally getting mad because I'm beating you in a practice room that has no bearing on anything. No one cares what's happening here. No one's seeing it. Nothing's right. But you're getting mad about the result. You realize how dumb and counterproductive that is? And it took a while, but eventually, he figured it out. It's like, just think about the wrestling. Think about the wrestling. So back to the kid that loses the match, if we say, hey, you gave great effort. I'm really unconcerned whether you won or lost this match, right? Here's what you could have done better to win the match, right? If you would have stayed on the single leg instead of coming up to the body, you would have won the match. If you would have peeled the hands on bottom instead of trying to get up first, you would have won the match. And that's, right? So it's us putting that emphasis to them, right? It's us putting the emphasis to them. And so if you can make them kind of obsessed about getting better at wrestling, because once you got the effort, right, we already established that we had the effort. We started there. We got the effort. Now, once we have the effort, then it's just about giving them the tools and getting them unfocused on the results, because the results will come. And that's not me saying you be a robot and don't care. Kids train really hard, and at some point they lose a big match. They're going to be upset. Give them an hour or two. Let them get over it, and then, okay. Then probably do the same thing. Like, hey, you fought your ass off. I couldn't have really expected more out of you. Here's why you lost. Now let's help you get better. Okay, so that's effort. The second one would be that they can really control. And I think this would be almost even easier than effort, is composure. And that kind of goes a lot with the number one is if we're too focused on the result of the contest and the result of the contest threatens our identity, then we're way more likely to lose our composure. And if we know that, hey, if we give a great effort, that's all I can do, then it's likely we're going to be able to keep our composure, especially when we acknowledge that keeping our composure is going to give us the best chance to have a good outcome. Okay? So I really focus on that with kids a lot. And you'll see because I know all of you guys have at least one kid who loses their shit like half the matches they're in. Do we all have that kid? We all do, right? Of course. And so you have to try a little harder with that one. And lots of times, if you haven't done this, you can do this. That kid or those few kids that we're thinking about that lose their composure, watch their parents. Well, I can almost guarantee you it's a reflection. I can guarantee it. Okay? And so then lots of times, this is where I struggle sometimes because I'm a little too blunt sometimes. But you gotta get the parents to realize that they're part of the problem. Some of them don't like that; they get upset. So my wife has been continually coaching me for the last 15 years on how to be less blunt about what we need to happen. And I am getting better, I promise. Okay, but so when they're losing their composure, it's almost always a reflection of, the parent. And how they've been brought up, and we need to ideally make the parent realize that that's counterproductive to what we want to do. And as a kid gets older, I always try to make them realize if you lose your composure in life, bad things happen there too. Like, right? You lose your composure at a bar and you get in a fight. Okay, nothing good is happening there. You lose your shit and you yell at your wife. That's probably not going to be good either, right? It's going to take some time to recover from. Like, you think your boss is an idiot and you freak out. You slap him. Well, you're fired, right? Like, guys, there's no circumstance where like losing your shit is good. It just doesn't work. So like I pretty much, as they get older, that's not a like young kids topic, but that's like a 16, 17-year-old topic. When the problem persists and they're getting to be 17, it's like, dude, you're an adult soon. You're an adult soon. Like, what about this? What about this? What about this? You gotta make them realize how stupid it is. And then my last tactic on the composure topic I would say like, hopefully everything's already solved itself by the time we got to this point, but I'd say like, are you really so weak that you can't control yourself? Are you really that mentally weak? Because you can't make an argument to me, and I'll let them. Anyone in this crowd is welcome to make an argument to me. Make an argument to me that losing your composure is a really positive thing. Make that argument. Okay, so you can't make the argument. Then once we established that this is in fact a negative thing, and now, right, by the time I'm talking to this kid, he's probably done it for 4, 5, 6, 7, the whole time, right? A lot of years. Okay, so why can't you control yourself? Why do you have that inability? And then you're gonna be an adult soon, and we've talked about the negative consequences this is gonna have as an adult. So if you can't control yourself in a wrestling match, what about something that really matters? What about when it really matters? What about when it's your job on the line? Or what about when someone does something mean to your kid? Or, right? Like, what about when it really matters? So those are probably the two that we really, really hammer from a young age. And I got a great compliment last week from one of my other club coaches that I really like. But, you know, it's like, guys, this is what we focus on, effort and composure. And he said, man, it was at the US Open, he said, man, all of your guys wrestle hard as shit, and they keep their composure when things get tough. And I'm like, dude, like, I couldn't have got a better compliment. Like, I couldn't have got a better compliment. Because that's what we try to do. We try to make them wrestle really hard, and we try to make them, so obviously the keeping composure in hard situations, there's a technical aspect to that too, which we'll get to today, right? Because if you have no idea what you're doing in a lot of positions, then you're bound to lose your composure because you literally don't know what you're doing. So it will be frustrating. So there's a technical aspect to that as well, but there's a mental side of it too, right? So effort and composure. So those are the two things that I think you can always control, and that we really stress from a very young age. Questions or debate on those?
But I got a question.
Yeah, shoot.
When you have a kid and you know their parents are crazy, they're gonna flip their shit, right? I just stick in composure. I pass these days.
Yeah.
I know your parents are flip their shit. But how can we put you back on track to get on?
Yeah. So I would address the parent for sure. And most of the time that works. Most of the time it works. I've had a few instances where it doesn't work, and you know, this one is where it's like, you can try to fix a lot of situations, you can't fix every situation, unfortunately. You guys only have a finite amount of time, and how much time can you go spend on a parent, you know? So I try to get them to realize the negative effect it's having on their athlete. And you know what? I guess one of the things I probably did, and so I said I was too blunt, and I would almost say it was stupid. I was stupid, but I would almost make them feel like they don't care about their kid, that was so dumb of me, right? It's like 99% of parents love their child and they want them to see their best. There's obviously a few that don't, right? They're just bad people probably, but most of them do. So I always try to establish that point first. Like, listen, I know you care. I know you want them to be good, and then after we establish that, then I would say, well, can't you see how this is creating a negative effect for them? You know, most of them will be very good about it. There'll be a couple that push back, and for that one, it's like probably just patience over time. And some of them, honestly, I don't know what their parents did to them. You know, they're 50 years old right now. I don't know what their parents did to them, but they They honestly, they never get over the hump. That's pretty rare, but it does happen. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to change that. But most of them, I would say, 95% are going to respond very positively as long as you frame it the right way, which I failed at in the beginning, right? I'm pretty good at it at this point in time. So, is that fair? Cool. Yeah.
What about, we got a couple of wrestlers that in all seasons there's no pressure on like but then when they get in high pressure situations, freeze up,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. What do you do to help support that?
Well, it's okay. That one, it's both easy and it's hard at the same time, right? So it's easy in saying, okay, I see you already know how to do this. I know you know how to do it because you do it, right? And you can establish a few matches. So you should literally bring up specific matches. You should say, in this one, I saw what you're capable of, right? And the kid probably wants to be that good all the time. I mean, is that fair, right? They don't want to, don't want to be good then and then like purposely suck other times. It's not in their best interest. So it's easy because they do know how to do it because they do it, right? And now you have to figure out, okay, well, what's blocking them the rest of the time? And most of the time, they're probably thinking that also. They probably just don't have the tools, right? And so I'll tell you my easiest case of this ever, just to establish it can potentially be easy when you see it. Because the hardest kids are the kids who you see it in the room, but you've never seen it on the mat. Like they literally haven't been able to put it out there ever. That's the hardest kid. Okay, so the easiest kid ever was this kid named Noah Mulvaney. He was NCAA qualifier as a true freshman for Bucknell this year, but he was really good as a little kid, not a little kid, as like, we'll say middle schooler. He got pretty good, And then he had a few rough patches where he wasn't that good, and then he did some of the right things and he jumped back up again, right? And so he really jumped back up as a junior in high school. He took 5th at Fargo, I think. He placed pretty high. And so he went up relatively high in the national rankings, right? And his whole life prior to that, he had been a great competitor, right? So when he had those not good results like freshman and sophomore year, he just didn't quite have the skills to go along with it. And so he had to build the skills. And so earlier in his life, he won because he was like strong and aggressive and tough and like these type of things, And then he didn't build the skills enough. So there was this valley. We built the skills and he got back up, right? But always his whole life, he had been a great competitor. So he places high at Fargo and he gets a relatively high national ranking. And you know what? As a coach, I didn't really see it. And then he lost 2 matches to kids that were good, right? But they weren't on his level, being high school season. And I was like, Noah, what the fuck? What are you doing here? And he's like, right? And I should have seen it, and I didn't see it. He's like, and he said, I feel pressure now. I'm ranked 6th in the country, and I felt pressure. I said, okay. And so I said, well, Noah, your whole life, I've been coaching you since you were, 8 or 9 years old or whatever. So your whole life, you've been a great competitor. You literally, we call him the junkyard dog because he just attacks people, right? I said, your whole life been a great competitor. You know how to do it. Just do whatever you did before. Like whatever you're thinking now, forget about it. Do what you did before. And he's like, oh yeah. And so like, if you can establish what they were feeling when they did those things. So you see, this kid has this bunch of good matches at this point in time, right? So you can establish to him, at that point in time, what were you feeling? What were you thinking? How did you warm up? Like, establish these things. You just need to recreate that. You need to recreate that, right? And so for him, it's probably that. There's also this mental exercise called, you guys can, and this is kind of the same thing, but we're close. It's called best and worst match. I don't know if you guys have done that. Have you guys done that one, or yeah or no? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? No? Okay. So you say to a kid, what was your best match last year? Or a couple of your best, right? And you say, how'd you warm up? What did you eat? How'd you cut weight? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? Okay? And you say, what was your worst match last year? And then you go through the same list, right? And so the goal would be to say, well, when I wrestle my best, here's why, right? And acknowledge why. And when I wrestle my worst, here's why. And generally, to your point, when I wrestle my best, I probably wasn't thinking about the result. I probably wasn't worried about what happened afterwards. When I wrestle my worst, what was I thinking? Well, if I don't win this match, I'm not going to go to state. If I don't win this match, my dad's going to yell at me, right? Something stupid like that. So if you think about it like I don't know, it's been too long since math class. I don't remember what this thing is called. Sine curve, thank you. Okay, so if you think about it like waves, right? It's like, well, if we're down here sometimes, worst match, and then we're up here sometimes, best match, well, the ideal is that we bring the wave up. We cut out the bottom, right? We're never going to perform our best every single match. That's impossible, right? But if we get cut out the bottom, our worst ones, it's going to make us a lot better wrestlers. So I think from the point of when you've seen them do it, they've at least had that feeling, so you can establish in this match, right? And I would tell them, like, when you wrestled Bobby, you wrestled your butt off. Like, do whatever you're doing against him. Like, whatever feelings you were having, like, do that again. So the harder ones, and like the one kid I brought up had great effort, but he just didn't quite achieve, was like, he put too much pressure on himself. And I tried so much to figure out how to kind of relieve that from him, because I could see it in practice. I could see from a technical aspect, he was good. And from a physical aspect, he kind of had all the, he wasn't like weak or anything, right? And he just couldn't put together matches. But so when you see it from a kid, sometimes you just need to get him to replicate that one thing. And so sometimes it might even just be one time. You might see a flash one time, but then you got to make a point of that and say, okay, what happened this day, and how do we get that day to happen more often, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have all seen that with kids. So when you see that flash, like, they got it in, I'm like, say, what were you doing, what were you thinking, what were you feeling, and let's replicate that over and over and over, guys. Okay, any other questions? Then I'm gonna say some controversial shit after this. What time? How am I doing at time-wise? I don't think about 10 minutes.
Good. Take a break whenever you want.
What? I've already talked for 50 minutes? There's no way.
No, 40.
Oh, see, I knew this. I'm not even gonna get close through everything. Son of a gun. Happens every time. Damn it. Okay. Well, we might not get to any wrestling moves today. They're all online somewhere, so like whatever. Okay, so here's the controversial thing I'm gonna say, because people will get upset at me for this one. We don't punish kids when they make technical mistakes. We don't ever, right? And I talked about effort. We love effort. We don't ever punish mistakes, because I want you to go after it every time. Think about what you actually want out of an athlete. If I told you this kid is fearless as shit and they just go after it every single time, who doesn't love that? No one in here is raising their hand. No one in here says, I don't love that. Okay? Now, if you give me that, we can correct mistakes, right? Over the course of time, we can correct mistakes. I want a kid so fearless. This is where the parent thing is hard, because sometimes, to your question, sometimes I have one of these right now. I won't say his name. This kid's really good, younger still. His dad's obsessed about correcting mistakes, and it's creating fear within the athlete, and so I never get the best performance. And I can't get the dad to fucking realize he's creating fear. I don't want fear. I want no fear. I want the kid to want to bring the heat. Kind of like Mitchell Messerbrink. Mitchell Messerbrink is kind of like the embodiment of this. And so just so you guys, his dad was my high school coach, right? So we're kind of along the same way. He coaches with us now at AWA. So we're along the same lines. But like, he just sends it every time. And I think you can say the same thing with Parker Keckeisen, who's one of our athletes, and Keegan O'Toole. Like, they just go after it. Keegan thinks a little too much sometimes. We've been trying to fix that since he was 10. But so we don't punish mistakes, because I want them being aggressive and I want them being fearless. And every kid who's going to try hard and going to be fearless, they obviously want to have good results, right? They don't want to suck. None of them do. And so they go out on a match and they make a few mistakes and they lose. Okay, cool. We'll work on that Monday. We'll work on it Monday. And then guess what? They're probably not going to make that same mistake again. They might make it a couple times, right? But by the time they're older, it's going to be fixed, right? Now, like I say, is every kid going to be an S champ? No, right? But it's like the mistakes get fixed over time. And so I think one of the worst things that coaches and parents do is they hammer mistakes really, really bad. Now, here's the flip side of that. The flip side of that is it works for a while, okay? The flip side, it works for a while because guess what? All little kids suck at wrestling. They're all terrible, okay? So I always think about it like this. We go on a spectrum, okay? From kindergartner, that doesn't know how to wrestle, very bad, right? To Olympic champion would be on the other end of that. Okay, we're going up like this progressively. At no point does it go down. At no point are the 8th graders better than the sophomores. Is that a fair statement or no? Am I being fair here? Okay. So as a whole, 8th graders not better than 10th graders. 10th graders not better than 12th graders. 12th graders are not better than high school juniors. High school juniors are not better than senior level athletes. Right? So we progressively get better and better and better and better and better. Okay. So the kids on the low end, like the 5th and 6th graders, okay, if you just compare their wrestling skill to high school seniors, they are way worse, significantly. Am I being fair on this or not? We're all in agreement, okay. So they're gonna make more mistakes. They're gonna make way more mistakes. And so if you do teach your kid to be kind of mistake-proof early, they're gonna win a lot of matches. So parents hammer their kids on mistakes, they get their kids to stop making mistakes, and as a 6th grader, they're having great results because they don't make nearly as many mistakes as the other 6th grader. Okay? But now, the rest of their time, they're really, really obsessive about not making mistakes. And as other kids get better, guess what happens? The other kids stop making as many mistakes. And if my whole wrestling style, my fundamental style, is based upon my opponent making a mistake, and that's it, and my opponents are getting progressively better, which means they're making less mistakes, it's going to get progressively harder for me to win matches. And that's kind of what happens, right? When you see these kids never get better. You have to be able to be focused on going to score your own points, creating your own offense, and that takes me taking risk. When I take risk, I can make a mistake. When I take the risks, I can make mistakes. Of course, right? And if I take no risk, I can't make a mistake. And that's where some kids are. And that's where they stay. And that's why they never get better. Right? Fundamentally, they're fearful of their parents or coaches, probably parents at this point, yelling at them. So they're just like, right? They're solid in their position. They don't make mistakes. They sprawl once in a while. They hit a go behind. They win matches. That works. You know who was like this? I'll tell you who was like this. Aiden Sinclair was like this. Do you guys know who that is? If I'm saying names, he's really good at wrestling. But I got him when he was going into 8th grade, I think, and he was like that. And you know, it wasn't because his parents; it was actually because he's really, really freaking smart. And he realized the easiest way for me to win is just not do dumb shit. Right? That, for real, he realized that himself. It's like, holy crap, you're smart. How'd you realize that when you're so young? But I spent 3 years talking him out of it. I spent 3 years saying, that's actually really a bad idea. Like, I need you to go after it. All right, I will, you know what, I'm going to stop there. I'll continue. We'll keep talking about mindset stuff. If we never get to the technique, we never get to the technique. If we get to it, cool. I got at least a few more mindset things I would really like to talk about. So we'll keep going on the mindset. As long as you guys go with that. You guys go with that? All right. Sweet. So, Mr. Danny, where'd he go? He's gone.